I am Amara Vance, and I was 26 years old when my life cracked open in the middle of a luxury restaurant and revealed everything I had tried so hard not to see. Before I continue, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive, and your comments remind others that they're not alone. I lived in Hartford, Connecticut, in a narrow one-bedroom apartment above a closed-down bakery. The paint peeled in the hallway, the heater rattled all winter, and the stairs creaked like they were tired of holding people up. But it was mine. I paid the rent myself. I paid every bill myself. And I ran my own small branding and illustration studio, working late nights on logos, packaging designs, and social media campaigns for local businesses that couldn't afford big agencies. I didn't remember much about my real parents. They died when I was 5 years old, in a collision on an icy highway just outside New Haven. 1 minute, I had a mother who braided my hair every morning and a father who lifted me onto his shoulders so I could touch tree branches. The next, I was standing in a funeral home wearing a borrowed black dress that dragged on the floor, staring at 2 closed caskets that felt unreal, like props in a bad play. After that, everything blurred. My parents' close friends, Margaret and Thomas Hale, stepped forward. They were well-respected, well-off, and well-spoken. People at the funeral whispered about what good people they were for, taking me in. They already had 2 children, Bianca, who was 11, and Ethan, who was 9. Everyone said I was lucky, and for the first few months, I believed it. Margaret packed my lunches. Thomas drove me to school. They smiled when neighbors watched. Bianca hugged me when people were around. Ethan pretended to be kind when his friends were nearby. But when the doors closed, when the audience disappeared, the truth settled in quietly. Bianca got the larger bedroom with new furniture. I was given a small room at the end of the hall, with an old mattress and a desk missing one leg. Bianca wore brand new clothes every semester. I wore her old ones. Ethan got a new bike for his birthday. I got told to be grateful I had a roof over my head. When I was 7 and asked Margaret why my shoes had holes while Bianca's didn't, she crouched down, smiled tightly, and whispered words that would stay with me forever. We took you in when nobody else wanted you. Don't push your luck. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't their daughter. I was their charity project. And they never let me forget it. Bianca was the loudest about it. She was older, sharper, and cruel in a way that felt practiced. "Why does the adopted girl sit with us?" she'd ask at dinner. "Can you tell Amara to stop acting like she belongs here?" she'd say, laughing. Ethan followed her lead. He told his friends I was temporary, that I wasn't real family, that I was just someone his parents felt sorry for. School wasn't much better. Bianca and Ethan attended a private academy with marble floors and uniforms that cost more than my rent does now. I went to public school. I watched them get driven off every morning while I waited for the bus. When college came, Bianca and Ethan toured campuses across the country. Their tuition was paid in full. When I graduated high school, Thomas sat me down and told me I needed to be realistic. So I went to community college. I worked 2 jobs. I studied until my eyes burned. I took out loans and learned how to survive on coffee and exhaustion. And through all of it, there was only one person who ever showed up for me. Grandmother Eleanor Hale. She was Margaret's mother, and she was nothing like her. Eleanor had built a medical manufacturing empire from scratch decades earlier. She was wealthy beyond comprehension, but she never acted like it mattered. When she visited, she brought me books, art supplies, and once a silver necklace she said reminded her of strength. She hugged me like she meant it. She came to my graduation. She cried when I walked across the stage. And when she pressed an envelope into my hand, I had no idea it contained $40,000. "For your loans," she said. "You earned this." That money changed my life. After graduation, I moved out. I built my business slowly, painfully, but honestly. And for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. Then Bianca sent a message in the family group chat. She was celebrating a business deal at one of the most expensive restaurants in Hartford. She invited everyone, including me. I almost didn't go, but Eleanor would be there. So I went. The restaurant was all glass and gold and quiet judgment. I walked in and spotted the table immediately. Bianca was laughing loudly, wine glass in hand. Ethan sat beside her. Margaret and Thomas nodded along proudly. Eleanor sat at the end, looking tired. I smiled and walked over. "Hi, everyone." Bianca looked up, scanned me, and smiled the kind of smile that cuts. "Oh, Amara," she said loudly. "I think you should find another table. This one's for real family." The laughter was instant. Everyone laughed. Everyone except Eleanor. My chest burned. My hands shook. But leaving would have meant they won. So I sat. Dinner dragged on. I tried to share good news. My studio had just signed a $75,000 annual contract. No one listened. They ordered steaks, lobster, wine that cost more than my monthly groceries. When the waiter arrived, he placed the bill in front of me. $4,600. Bianca smiled. Oh, didn't I say? You're covering it. Consider it a thank you. My card barely cleared. And then Eleanor stood up. Her chair scraped loudly. I'm done, she said. And everything changed. Eleanor's voice didn't shake when she spoke. Not even a little. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, she said, standing at the end of that long marble table, her hands resting calmly on the back of her chair. My doctors estimate I have between 5 and 7 months left. The room froze. Forks hovered in midair. Wine glasses stopped moving. Even the restaurant's background music seemed too loud all of a sudden. Margaret laughed nervously. Mom, that's not funny. I'm not joking, Eleanor replied. And I didn't come here to discuss my health. I came here to end something. She turned slowly, her eyes scanning the table. Bianca, Ethan, Margaret, Thomas. I changed my will last week, she continued. Every asset, every property, every share, everything I own now belongs to Amara. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the world exploded. Bianca slammed her palms against the table so hard the glasses rattled. You can't do that. That money is ours. Ethan stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. I have loans. I have debts. You promised. Margaret's face twisted in panic. Mom, you're sick. You're not thinking clearly. This is insane. Thomas kept muttering. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. I sat frozen. My grandmother was dying. And all they could see was money. Eleanor didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. I've watched you people for over 2 decades, she said quietly. I watched you treat this girl like an inconvenience. Like a burden. Like something you tolerated instead of loved. Bianca rounded on me, her nails digging into my arm. You manipulated her. Let go, I said, my voice barely steady. Eleanor reached for me. We're leaving. As we walked out of the restaurant, their shouting followed us. Threats. Accusations. Promises of lawsuits. I drove Eleanor back to her estate on the outskirts of Avondale, the silence between us heavy but peaceful. I should have done this years ago, she said softly. I'm sorry I waited so long. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Calls. Messages. Voicemails. I ignored them all. Later that day, Eleanor asked me to move in. I don't want to be alone, she said. And I don't want you to be either. So I packed my small life into a few boxes and moved into a house bigger than anything I'd ever known. That afternoon, a man in a tailored gray suit was waiting in the living room. Amara, this is Jonathan Pierce, Eleanor said. My attorney. He shook my hand and opened his briefcase. The estate is valued at approximately $182 million, he said calmly. $70 million liquid. The rest in property, investments, and private holdings. I couldn't process it. There's more, Eleanor added. When Margaret and Thomas adopted me, they weren't just given custody. They were given access. My parents had left a trust fund. $950,000. Jonathan slid documents across the table. Bank statements. Transfers. Receipts. They drained it, he said. Every cent. Vacations. Luxury vehicles. Tuition. Renovations. None of it for me. I felt sick. I discovered this 3 years ago, Eleanor said. I've been gathering evidence ever since. Jonathan nodded. We filed a civil lawsuit yesterday. We're seeking $3.1 million, including interest and damages. Within days, the story leaked. Headlines exploded. Hartford heiress leaves fortune to foster granddaughter. Family faces lawsuit over stolen trust fund. The internet was ruthless. Some called me a gold digger. Others called Eleanor a hero. Margaret and Thomas hired private investigators. Filed motions. Challenged the will. They claimed Eleanor wasn't competent. Eleanor responded by scheduling a press conference. The room was packed with reporters. I am of sound mind, she said. Here are evaluations from 4 medical professionals. Folders slid across tables. And here is proof my daughter and son-in-law stole nearly $1 million from a child entrusted to them. More folders. Gasps filled the room. Then Eleanor played the video. Bianca's voice echoed through the hall. This table's for real family. The silence afterward was deafening. That's when Bianca stormed in. She stole everything. Bianca screamed. We deserve that money. Raising her was hell. Every camera turned. Jonathan smiled. The confession went viral within hours. 25 million views by morning. Public opinion flipped overnight. Ethan tried damage control. It backfired. Margaret hired a PR firm. It failed. A month later, the trial began. 3 days of evidence. Medical records. Bank statements. School records. Messages. The judge didn't hesitate. The will stands. The restitution was ordered. Margaret cried. Thomas shouted. Bianca stared. 3 weeks later, Eleanor grew weaker. I stayed by her side. She passed away holding my hand. And the world went quiet. The house felt impossibly quiet after Eleanor died. Even though it was enormous, even though staff moved softly through the halls, the silence pressed against my chest like weight. I stayed in her bedroom for hours after the doctors left, sitting beside her bed, holding her hand long after it had gone cold. For so long, she had been the only person who truly saw me. The only one who defended me without hesitation. And now she was gone. The funeral was small, just as she had wanted. No grand speeches. No public spectacle. Just a handful of old friends from the medical industry, Jonathan Pierce, and me. Margaret, Thomas, Bianca, and Ethan tried to attend. Security stopped them at the gates. They didn't get to pretend they cared now. Afterward, Jonathan sat with me in Eleanor's study. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, illuminating shelves of books and framed photographs from her early days building the company. The estate transfer is complete, he said. All assets are now legally yours. The number still didn't feel real. $182 million. What do you want to do next? He asked. The answer came easily. I want to build something that protects kids like me, I said. Kids who don't have a voice. That was how the Eleanor Hale Foundation was born. We started small. Legal aid for foster children. Counseling services. Emergency funds. Education grants. Within 6 months, we had helped over 80 children escape abusive placements or recover stolen trust funds. At the same time, I inherited Eleanor's medical manufacturing company. I was terrified. I knew design, branding, strategy, not pharmaceutical logistics and regulatory compliance. But I remembered Eleanor's words, hire smart people. Listen more than you speak. So I did. I surrounded myself with experts. I asked questions. I learned. And slowly, the company didn't just survive, it thrived. We expanded into new markets. Invested in research, increased wages, built ethical partnerships. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was building. Meanwhile, Margaret and Thomas were unraveling. They couldn't pay the $3.1 million restitution. They sold their house, their cars, their investments. It still wasn't enough. The civil case triggered a criminal investigation. Thomas was charged with fraud and sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Margaret received probation and mandatory financial restitution monitoring. Ethan was ordered to repay $420,000 that had funded his education. He took 2 jobs. His fiancée left when the scandal made national news. Bianca lost everything. Her husband divorced her. Her business collapsed. Clients walked away. Even the private investigator she hired sued her for unpaid fees. A year passed. The foundation expanded to Chicago and Atlanta. We helped over 300 foster children in 12 months. Kids who reminded me of myself, quiet, observant, careful not to ask for too much. Every success felt like honoring Eleanor. I visited her grave every Sunday. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I just sat there and talked to her about the kids we helped, the company's progress, the life she made possible for me. I hope you're proud, I'd whisper. Then the messages started. Ethan emailed first. Apologies. Excuses. Desperation. I deleted it. Bianca tried next. Long paragraphs. Begging. Regret. I deleted that too. Margaret wrote a letter claiming motherhood, forgiveness, family. I read it once. Then deleted it. Thomas sent a handwritten letter from prison asking for help with legal fees. I threw it away. They didn't understand. Family isn't who houses you. It's who protects you. One afternoon, while reviewing foundation applications, a name stopped me cold. Bianca Hale. She was requesting financial assistance. She wrote about losing everything. About working retail. About regret. I stared at the application for a long time. I could help, but helping doesn't mean erasing consequences. I stamped denied and moved on. Months later, Margaret showed up at the foundation office. Security escorted her out. Ethan tried LinkedIn. Blocked. Bianca sent messages through mutual acquaintances. The answer never changed. No. They had 22 years to choose kindness. I finally chose myself. Life settled into something peaceful. Busy, yes. Challenging, absolutely. But peaceful. I lived in Eleanor's estate, not because it was grand, but because it was filled with her presence. I redesigned one wing into a creative studio, another into a youth center for foundation programs. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about the girl in the too big black dress standing in a funeral home. She would never believe this life existed. And yet, here I was. Whole. Strong. Free. I knelt by Eleanor's grave one bright Sunday morning, flowers in hand, sunlight filtering through the trees. I miss you, I said softly. But I'm okay. I really am. I built a life that finally belongs to me. And I'll keep protecting the kids who need it, just like you protected me. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from.